Alright, we are back today to make caramel, and this caramel recipe is to die for. However, it is very labor intensive. From beginning to end of cooking is about an hour. That doesn't even include your prep. So this is a very intense recipe, but it tastes wonderful, and you'll see that it was worth all of your labor. Now, once we have everything pre-measured, you do need to get your pan ready. You're going to use a 9 by 13, so you know that's a rectangle. And I have buttered the bottom and the sides of this pan so that the caramel doesn't stick when we pour it in there. So this is just going to get set aside for much later, like an hour. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a double boiler. Now you can buy fancy double boilers at the store. I don't own one at home. I just use a saucepan with a bowl. And for this recipe, there's so much milk in here that it probably wouldn't fit in a conventional double boiler, and you'd have to do this anyway. So you don't need to go buy anything. So in this, a double boiler it's going to heat the milk by steam so it doesn't burn. So we have milk in the bottom, and we need 3 cups of heavy cream in the top. So there's 1 cup, and here's the other 2 cups. So there's our 3 cups of heavy cream. And then we need 2/3 cup of Eagle brand milk. Well, that's a brand, or sweetened condensed milk is really what it's called. Okay, so the 2/3 marking here is right here. So I'm going to start pouring. And again, you measure these in glass measuring cups. Candy recipes are very unforgiving, so you want to be as precise as you can. And that looks pretty close. So there's our 2/3 cup of Eagle brand or sweetened condensed milk. And I'm also going to pour that in here. So our heavy cream is very close to milk the way it comes out of the cow. Alright, it's about 48% fat. And so that's the butter fat, that's where you get butter from. And sweetened condensed milk, is the way they make that, is they take milk and they pull out the water and they replace the water with sugar. So this is very rich because of all the fat, and it's very sweet because of all the sugar. So I'm going to turn this on and see where I'm at here. And I'm going to leave it right around 200. The water beneath will boil, and that steam then will heat up this milk. Now, this mixture, we just need it to get warm. It does not need to boil, but it does need to get warm. So that's going to take several minutes. So while that's going, I am going to start the next step. Okay. The next step is we have a saucepan, and we are going to combine 2 cups of corn syrup. Now this is basically another form of sugar. It's very, very sweet. And as you know, caramel is very sweet. I am going to scrape as much as I can out of these bags, because we know candy recipes are basically chemistry experiments you can eat. Very, very precise, very particular about how it all gets put together. Then we also need to add 2 cups of sugar, because there's still not enough sugar in this. We have sweetened condensed milk as a sweetener, corn syrup as a sweetener, and sugar as a sweetener. And then we also need to add a little salt. Salt is a flavor enhancer. It brings out flavor. And we need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. It will help break the sweetness a little bit, but with that ratio of sugar to salt, it's really going to bring out the vanilla flavor when that gets added at the very end. I have another rubber scraper here. Now this we're going to stir. And this we need to bring to a boil. And then it has to boil for 1 minute. I'm going to put this on 12. Again, you have to be cautious and respectful of the sugar. It will burn. And once it burns, then you're starting over, and that is just no fun, especially with something that takes this long. Now, if you remember from the other lab, if you've already done praline almonds, this is a supersaturated solution. There's so much sugar in here, it all can't dissolve. You can see that this is very, very grainy. And so by heating up that liquid in here, we are going to force the liquid to dissolve more sugar, and that's super saturated. So you can go tell your chemistry teacher that you learned about super saturated in pastry, and you got to eat it as well. All right, so we will be back in a few minutes when this has come to a boil. We are back, and what we did is we stopped this process to let this get warm, and you can see all the steam coming up. This is nice and warm. You don't have to really babysit it since it's in a double boiler. It's not going to burn. Now, we're almost at a full rolling boil here. So what you need to do at this point is it has to boil for 1 minute. So I have a timer here next to me, and I'm going to start it so that I am boiling it for exactly 1 minute. Now, if you don't have a timer, you can always use your phone. You know, most of our phones are smartphones. They have apps. Most of them have a stopwatch, or you can use the clock in the classroom or in your house that has a second hand to keep track of that. As you see, this is really bubbling up. And what I want to do now is get ready for the next step, which what's going to happen here is we're going to start adding this cream mixture a half cup at a time. So it's going to take a long time. We're going to add a half cup and then stir for 5 minutes. So we will be stopping and starting quite a bit so that you can see that process. We have 15 more seconds left. So I'm going to get the cream ready. There's the first half cup of the cream mixture. This is going to bubble up, and then it'll bubble right back down. All right, so now I'm going to take my timer and reset it for 5 minutes. Okay, it's been almost 5 minutes, not quite. A few things I want you to see. I'm now wearing an oven mitt. Not only will this splatter occasionally, it gets really hot here with all this steam coming off this caramel. So I went ahead and put on an oven mitt just to protect my hand. And if you can see, the color is changing very slightly. It will continue to darken up as we continue cooking. So we're at our 5 minute mark. So remember, this is going to boil up and then boil down. Okay? See, and it comes up and then goes right back down. So I will see you in another 5 minutes. Okay, we're back and we have 10 seconds left on our next round of 5 minutes. You can see that the color is still very gradually darkening, which it will do. That is the sugar in this mixture caramelizing. We've hit our 5 minute mark. Bubble up, bubble down. Okay. And another 5 minutes to go. We're back again. We have about 25 seconds left. If you take a look at this, you can see that the mixture is getting thicker and the color is continuing to darken. All right, and again, that's the caramelization of the sugar. I don't want to say bad part of this recipe, but the hard part is that you do have to babysit this. You have to sit here and keep stirring for the entire 5 minutes, or that will burn in a heartbeat. Again, we bubble up, bubble down, and continue for another 5 minutes of stirring. All right, okay, we're back. We have 30 seconds before we add the next round. Candy making is a test of our patience. We're tempted always to turn up the heat to make things go faster. It doesn't work with candy making. You have to be patient. It's very, very tedious, and I mean, it's worth it in the end, but that's one reason why gourmet candy is so expensive, is they don't take any shortcuts. They do everything, you know, the old-fashioned way. Now, we're going to add this batch of the milk. Again, it's going to bubble up. If you notice here, the caramel has definitely darkened up into what looks like a true caramel color. All right. And then also, you can see we probably have 2 more batches to go before we're done with this step of the recipe. So you can see, you're not sitting here during the 5 minute periods, but it is a very tedious recipe, but it'll be worth it in the end. Okay, we're ready here for one more addition of milk, and then we have one more after this. And other things you can do with this caramel, I mean, we're going to cut it and wrap it up like you would have for Christmas or the holidays, but you can also, I've used this, my daughter and I were making like taffy apples, so we made homemade caramel to dip them in. You can also use the caramel to make turtles. So it has multiple uses other than simply pouring it in a pan and cutting in squares. Again, it is labor intensive, but well worth the wait. Okay, we've added our last round of milk, and this has been cooking, and you need to take this to 242 degrees. So the thermometer's in there. You can see it's a nice, rich color. All right, now some options you have with this are to stir in walnuts or peanuts. We're going to do just straight caramel today. But when this is all over, you're going to be, when we get it up to 242, we are going to stir in our vanilla. And then if you were going to add nuts, you would do that then as well. Now, vanilla is added at the end because it will boil off. All that flavor will evaporate. So it's typically added at the end of these cooking stages for that purpose. All right? Right now, according to this, we are around 215. So we will be back when we're closer to 240. Okay, we're back. We're at 240, so almost there. 241. Also be very, very careful. Students often are tempted to lick things. First of all, it's not sanitary, so we don't want to do that. But also, this is unbelievably hot, so that would leave a burn like you would not want to think about. Okay? It would take a long time for your tongue to heal from a burn on this sugar syrup because it will stick to your tongue. All right, we're going to stir in the vanilla here. Oh, this smells wonderful. You can see that it came to a very nice caramel, that darker brown color. Now we have our pan prepared that we did at the very beginning. So you simply pour this in there. And you can see that nothing burned in the pan, and that is because we kept stirring. Now clean up again. We're going to fill this with water and bring it to a boil to clean up. We'll put our thermometer tips in there as well. And then I will be back after this is set to show you how to cut it. Okay, we're back and our caramel has set up. When you finish this in class, you will cover it with foil and just let it set up at room temperature. So I've just cut one piece of caramel from this. You can see here, caramel, when you buy it, is usually cut in 1-inch squares. Now, knowing high school students the way I do, they're looking at this and going, that is way too small. But this is incredibly rich. So this is typical size for caramel. And again, if your stomach can handle really rich foods, then eat more than 1 square. But 1 square is a serving size. See if I can get... go. We'll do it this way. Now, I'm using just a dough scraper to cut this. I find it is the easiest. You can get nice cuts. And then you'll go through this and you can score it, you know, so that you can get a nice grid going. And then you would go through and cut it down. So this gets lots and lots of caramel. So the easiest way to wrap this, these are little bakery tissues that I have ripped in half. You can also use wax paper. So you don't need to go out and buy anything fancy. All right? So you just take a piece of your caramel in here, wrap it up, and twist the ends in opposite directions. And then it's ready to give to friends and family or yourself.